what are we doing in the black community? The number one consumer of a Mercedes-Benz
It's us.
us. The number one consumer of a Gucci and a Louis Vuitton, us. And they don't even advertise. Why is it that in the black community, we are always the number one consumer, but we're not the number one creators?
So you just said it, the fact that there's consumers and creators. For so long, we assume success based on consumption.
Welcome back to Closing the Gap, the truth about black wealth. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton, along with co-host Mr. Eddie Richardson. Blessed and highly favored to be here today, of course, on V94.9 WATV. And of course, you can check us out, of course, on YouTube and on podcast locations of Closing the Gap, the truth about black wealth. Continue to like, share, subscribe. We want to continue to bring you wonderful information. We will continue to do that. And today we're kicking off, like I say, I think it's the last weekend of the month coming up, and we want to learn to, to appreciate what we're doing along the way and learn to celebrate your success instead of focusing on your failures. And it's something that I'm probably terrible at, because for me, the losses hurt a whole lot more than the wins help. It feels like I always focus for whatever reason on what I haven't done, and it's hard for me to see anything that I have done. I'm overly critical on myself in really every aspect of life. So I never feel like enough is enough, so I'm learning to appreciate the journey and learning that actually the blessing is in the journey, because that's when you grow, that's when you develop. That's how you figure out who you are is in the journey and learning to be, I say, of course, learning to be a blessing to others while you're going through the journeys and while you're trying to be the best version and become the best version of yourself. So I'm always interested in trying to figure out a way to, to balance the two. Of course, I know you got a word for us. And definitely a word is needed for myself and for everybody out there, because everybody is going through certain things, is dealing with certain things, and you have your good days and your bad days, but, learning to stay even keel, is a trick that I think all of us have to master to a certain extent. And, I always have a saying of never looking like what you're going through, because you're always going to be going through something. So you might as well get comfortable being uncomfortable, and learn to wear it well. So, but Brother Richard, what you got for us today? I know you got a word for that.
Let's take it right there. The comfort of being uncomfortable and celebrating our successes, not being so focused on our failures. When we're talking about focusing on our failures, and we do that too often, that we don't realize the work that we actually did to get success. And we down ourselves. My pastor preached about condemnation. And sometimes we condemn ourselves about what we haven't done so much that we can't see what we have done, what we have achieved. And there is a danger in celebrating your success too much.
Yep.
Right. You do need to celebrate it, but you have to be careful and, like you said, strike a good, healthy balance, because sometimes you can read your own press too much. And once you read your own press too much, then you start feeling that you've already arrived and you've reached the status and the place that you needed to reach. And so now you feel like you don't need to work. But what we want to impress upon our listening audience and our viewers is that when we're talking about celebrating your success, we're saying celebrate it by remembering the journey and the work that you put in to get that success, right? Not saying that, oh, okay, yeah, I made it to the mountaintop and now I'm good. No. Remember where you were down in the valley and that same grind that it took, because while you're on a mountaintop in one aspect now, there's another mountain for you to climb.
Absolutely.
Right? So at the peak of every mountain that you reach, you're at the base of a new mountain.
New level, new devil.
Yes, sir.
So let's say it.
So there's always work. There's always journey. There's always something more to achieve. And each round that we go around, it's like the song that we sing in church. We're climbing Jacob's ladder, and every round goes higher and higher, right? And so that's why I said when you reach a peak, there you're still at another base of another mountain. So we want to tell people, man, when you're going into this new year, and you're setting goals, and you are looking at what you want to do financially. You're looking at what you want to do in your life spiritually. You're evaluating your family. You're evaluating your job, trying to figure out what you're going to do. Look at what you did in the past that was successful and what it took you to reach that level of success, and take some of those lessons that you learned from that and move them into the new year as the foundation for where you're going to go in the next phase of 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, I say, in my business, they say scared money don't make money.
Mm-hmm.
And we all blessed to be a blessing is kind of my saying and my go-to. But, learning to cope and deal with success is just as important as learning to deal and cope with failure, I believe. We talk a lot about how to handle, stresses and traumas of being, unsuccessful, so to speak. But nobody talks about the struggles and the traumas and the stress that comes with being successful. And one of those things is called expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell my sons all the time, I say, look, you got to be careful once you start playing well. Because what comes with that is everybody expects you to play well all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So learning to deal with those expectations and learning to adjust and accept and embrace
Yes.
the expectations, embrace the grind, as we would say, embrace the struggle to be better and using that as motivation. And we have a saying of, everybody's probably heard it, where if your dreams don't scare you, you probably ain't dreaming big enough.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I've seen too many times in our community where I feel like our kids are not dreaming big enough. I was blessed to have a mother that told me to shoot for the stars, you land on the moon. And, I take it literally. So I wrote out there, and I'm trying to build something that I feel like doesn't exist in our community from a wealth management company perspective. I aim high, I have high expectations of myself, my company, things that I do, things I'm involved in. So, it pushes me to never quit. It can push me to a point of exhaustion to a certain extent, but the verses, of course, do not get weary and well doing. In due time, you reap and faint not. So, the Lord always finds a way to, rejuvenate me with a word, much like I feel like He's doing right now. He keeps me going and continues to give me those lessons that I need to continue to learn from, because a lot of life lessons I think that, we deal with are put there to help us in other ways and other aspects. So for me, I think dealing with things in my personal life has helped me to better be able to handle things when I reach certain obstacles and certain situations in my business life. Certain challenges and how you embrace them, how you attack them, how you learn to maybe not react so quickly and take a step back and then analyze the situation and figure out, okay, what is the best way for me to attack? And I've learned that, the Lord has put me in many situations where He's told me, Wilbert, you got to take your hands off the wheel. I always think about, my father was a driver's ed teacher as well as a basketball coach. And, he'd always tell me, look here, if you ever in a rainstorm and your car begins to hydroplane and feel like it's spinning out of control, the best thing to do is take your hands off the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the opposite of what we think.
Yeah.
In life, the first thing we want to do is grab that wheel and hold on tight. But the best thing to do is say, look here, the way the cars are made, the car's going to realign itself naturally. But you got to trust that it's going to do that and take your hands off the wheel. And so for me, that has been a parable for life in how I have to operate. And the Lord is saying, look, Wilbert, in order for you to get where I want to take you, you're going to have to take your hands off the wheel sometimes and let me be me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about how I'm going to do it. Just trust that I am going to do it. So those are the lessons and things that I've continued to kind of try to learn and embrace and continue to push forward. And, and I learned to, keep in the back of my mind when things happen to pop up, so we would keep your hands off the wheel.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it, because I'm a very analytical person. I'm very much like most business owners. You're going to be, pretty controlling, because, whatever you're doing, it's your baby.
Yeah.
And you want to take care of your baby. You want to, you think what's best for your baby in every situation, but learning to trust other people to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And learning to trust God that He's going to lead you and guide you. And even when things don't look like you think they're supposed to look, just continue to trust in Him, and He's going to bring it to pass in due time and in due season. And I think that trust, we always come back to that word of trust. And, we're talking about closing the gap. And, and I think in our community, for whatever reason, I feel like we've lost a lot of that trust in a lot of different areas. So we've lost that trust with each other to a certain extent. I think we've lost that trust in ourselves. I don't think we dream big enough. I've seen a lot of situations where, I've talked to kids and you ask a kid what they want to achieve and what they want to do, and they'll say, well, me being from Montgomery, the Hyundai plant came to Montgomery, and I was talking to some kids that was in the process of graduating high school, and actually I was there sitting with a young lady and a mother. And the young lady was actually up for an award for being a great student and great athlete. She was going on to Alabama A&M University on a basketball scholarship. So she had a bright future ahead of her. And I was sitting there and her mom said, I think my daughter's done well. I think she's done great. All I want to see her do is graduate and come get a job with me at Hyundai. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, nothing against that. She's taking care of herself. She's taking care of her family. But I'm looking at this young lady who has a future in front of her with unlimited potential opportunities, and you placing a ceiling on her based on your ceiling. And there used to be a time, I feel like, in our community where we told our kids to dream and dream big. My parents, allowed me. And I think that's one of the greatest things that we can do for our kids is put them in situations where we can allow them to dream big. My whole goal, and, when I became a parent, I said, I want to give my kids, of course, things that I didn't have, but always I want to make sure I give them everything that I did. And the most valuable thing that I feel like my father ever gave me was trust. And that's why I'm so big on the trust when it comes to business in my life and everything else, because my father always told me the honest to God truth in every situation. Regardless of how I felt about the truth, it didn't matter how the truth came out, whether it was positively or negatively, whether he was saying it in a politically correct fashion. At the end of the day, the truth was the truth. And the truth don't always sound good and feel good. Right. But it's still the truth. It's still the truth. So you can't object with the truth. And I think we become too uncomfortable in our communities with the truth, with we've misconstrued for some reason truth, criticism, and hate. Because the truth is not always sweet. We like to spin things, and we all do it to a certain extent. When somebody tells us something that we need to hear, may not want to hear, we all take a look, man, he hating a little bit. Man, why you hating him? And no, they might just be giving their objective opinion on the situation and trying to share some wisdom that maybe they've received, because they may be the voice that God is using to help you to see something differently. Yeah. But because we are so quick to react a lot of times, and we tend to take things so much more negatively because we don't have that closeness that we've talked about, in our community the way we used to have. And when you don't have that closeness, you don't have those relationships, now everything that someone else says comes off as hate. Versus if you have that relationship with someone and you have that discourse and you have that rapport and you have that communication, those lines are open and you're constantly in dialogue. Now when that person tells you something, it's not just hate. It's coming from a different place because they have some kind of understanding. There's some relationship there. And there's no relationship without reciprocation. There has to be some give and take in all things in order for it to be a true relationship. And people can give you in different ways. And I've come to kind of learn that. And, you give to me spiritually all the time. And I take from it, all the time. And I'm always looking to absorb, because those are things that I know that I can take, and it's all in you helping me being the best version of myself and helping me get better, whether it's my walk, because those are things that are going to help me as I'm on my journey to make better decisions when it's time to make those decisions. And, we got to get back to just from a community standpoint of having, like I said, we talked about more dialogue on the last episode and having more communication. So we now can absorb that truth and have, that discourse and not think that it's all hate, because, a lot of times people want to celebrate you and we can't determine if they're trying to celebrate us or hate on us, because we're so worried about why they're doing it versus just accepting the love that they actually giving. So, how you feel about that?
Well, that's because, like we said, we're trying to help everybody celebrate success. But too many times these things happen in a lack of trust is because we've had so many relationships that have failed that we can't celebrate the relationships that have been successful, because it only takes one good relationship in one certain thing to move us forward.
Yeah.
Right. I don't need 5 different financial advisors. All I need is Hamilton Wealth Advisor, right, to put me on the right track and get me going. But because some people have had bad relationships and somebody has taken advantage of them with their money, and now they can't even remember the one time somebody gave them some good advice.
Yeah.
Right. Or that one financial advisor that came to them and said, hey, I can assist you and I really want to help you, not because I'm looking for something for myself, but because this is what I do. Because like a financial advisor like yourself, you have a heart for the people, number one, because you're not seeking persons to invest their money just for your sake, right? But this is what you do. It's like this is your ministry. This is your calling. This is what God has brought you to. This wasn't what you set out to do, right? But this is the opportunity that God provided for you. And so when you are working with people, they see your heart, they feel your spirit. And so they're willing to trust you with their finances to make that investment. And so oftentimes the issue is with trust is we focus on how many relationships have failed, that we don't give a great account of the good ones that were successful, and not taking accountability on sometimes some relationships fail because of us.
Absolutely.
Right. And now all relationships are failing because of us, because we don't trust anybody anymore. But if we take the time and look at the relationship that we had, that, hey, okay, that relationship wouldn't have failed had I done what I was supposed to do. Right. Had I been the person in that relationship, whether it's a dating relationship, whether it's a financial advisement relationship, whether it's on a job, whether it's whatever it is, right? Even with the church, we have people that go around and they talk about church hurt, and we're not able to, tell the truth about Black wealth a lot of times because people don't want to take accountability and responsibility for their own actions. Right. So that's why we're here. We're trying to close that gap. And that's a big gap in our community, is taking accountability and responsibility for ourselves and doing the things like we are supposed to do them. With the church, people had a church hurt, and they're hurt sometimes because they weren't able to take the constructive criticism. They weren't able to take the accountability and responsibility that somebody in that church pulled them to the side and tried to lead them in the right way. And so now they're upset at the person in church. They're upset at the pastor. Now, we're not saying that, and I'm not saying, you're not saying that there aren't bad churches or there aren't bad financial advisors out there. Yes, there are some failures, right?
Yes,
but that's why we're saying we celebrate the success and don't be too overly focused on those relationships that failed all the time. Because when you do that, you fail to build good community.
Yeah. And I think it's learning to deal with failure better. Learning that, you know what, at some point in time, everybody's going to fail. There's been no person that's ever walked this earth besides Jesus that's succeeded in everything that they've ever done.
Yeah.
There's going to be some mistakes, but I always tell people, you got to look in the mirror and ask, what part did you play in that mistake? I meet with people all the time from a financial advisory perspective, and, we have a conversation. I tell them, I said, look, well, if I don't know everything that you're doing, then I'm not going to do nothing with you. And they were like, well, what you mean? You mean you got to have all my money? I said, well, I didn't say I got to have all your money. I said, I need to know everything that you're doing. Because if I know everything that you're doing, that allows me to be able to build a plan that fits with your life and everything that you're doing. If you giving me, 50% of the information, but you over here doing something completely different, that would dictate what I would or would not do.
Right.
One of the biggest things that you can learn in life is what not to do. It's a lot of things you can do to be successful, but there's some definitions that you need to know that can derail you and deter you. So knowing what not to do and knowing what you don't like, I think is more important in what you need to learn before you actually do. See you in a second. we're a very big picture in our community. We are great visionaries and we have great ideas, but the execution is where we lack. And it's not because of lack of, creativity or lack of education or lack of desire and work ethic. It's lack of planning. It's lack of understanding. It's lack of, business preparation. It's lack of understanding what professionals you need to have a relationship in order to have success if you're going to be in business or in any organization, whether it be the church, whether it be my wealth management practice, whether it be the barbershop, whether it be, someone who has an apparel company. Everybody needs to have certain people in their life. Everybody needs to have a financial advisor. Everybody needs to have a pastor or a spiritual covering. Everybody needs to have a CPA and accountant. Everybody needs to have, if you're in business only, you probably need a business manager or a business strategist. Everybody needs multiple people in their lives that can provide them advice and expertise in areas where they may not be strong. Most people who have a business are super creative and super innovative, but in a particular area or specialty. They need someone to help get their ideas down on paper and being able to strategize and organize. So like we say, welcome back to Closing the Gap, the Truth About Black Wealth here on WATV V94.9. Of course, we have another wonderful episode, of course, this last Saturday in the new year. Yes, sir. We're in the year, heading into the new year. Looking forward to 2025. And, we've been celebrating some of the successes, learning from the failures, yes, sir, but not trying to focus on the failures. That's right. And build on them. And like I say, the biggest thing that we can do is, look back on 2024 and reflect and, like I said, appreciate what we have done well, but learn what we haven't and seeking some help in areas where we are weak. And that's a sign of maturity and that's a sign of growth. I think that, those are things that we don't do well in our community, whether it be men seeking doctors, going on doctor visits and making sure you get your annual checkups. I had mine last week, so I'm thankful to say I've been taking all their advice. So, seeking out your doctor, having those regular checkups, having a financial advisor and having, some action items, and having a financial advisor don't mean you got to have $1 million. I have people walking my office every day to have $0, but, we got to start somewhere. Yeah. Like I say, Rome wasn't built in a day. So starting and having, a conversation about what can I do to put myself in a better situation.
And that's good because scripture in Luke chapter 14, verse 28, Jesus was teaching about, talking to the crowd about carrying your cross. And he gave them a parable about a person who wanted to build a tower. And he said, which of you which intend to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether you have sufficient amount to finish it, right? So what he's saying is just like you said, you don't wait till you've amassed a great amount of money to come and talk to a financial advisor. You don't necessarily want to wait until you're down on your luck and everything is going awry in your life. Then you want to go to church. Now, we're not saying that not to do those things.
Correct.
Because myself, when I started my business, barbershop, it was flying from the seat of my pants.
Hey,
Didn't had no idea how to get it going. Using the credit card to buy the chairs and everything, using personal credit to do the business, you know what I'm saying? And just by the grace of God, we were able to grind it out because I was so young, right? But I did not take the time to sit down and count the costs. Just like you said, lack of information, lack of planning, a lack of people around me that were knowledgeable of what it is that I was trying to do and how I needed to do it, right? And then also me not seeking the right help at that time, being young and brash, feeling like, oh, okay, yeah, I got it. I can figure this thing out. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Then this is the way to go and I'm going to do it this way. And yeah, I could have saved myself a lot of headache doing that.
I know.
And so when we talk about celebrating success, yes, I celebrate the fact that I was able to get open. I've been open for 20 years, right? But in celebrating that success, I celebrated from the fact of where did I go wrong in there, right? What could I have done better, right? Because I reached this 20-year mark in the barbershop business. I reached over 12 to 15 years in ministry, right? But I look back at some of the things that I did right and I realized what I did right. And I say, okay, you know what? I can improve on that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I've reached the pinnacle there, but I know that there's another level to reach in that, right? I can do even more now than I did then. And so what we want with this episode is just give you all actionable items, right, that you can utilize to build upon yourself. When you look at your success, analyze and ask yourself, when I started this, did I actually have a plan going into it? Right? Did I really count the cost of what it took? Did I have people around me? And as you look at yourself now with what you have, or if you have some ideas and visions that God is implanting within you that you want to bring to fruition going into the new year, you need to take the time, sit down with a piece of paper or your notepad on your phone, whatever it may be, computer, but write a list. Jot all those ideas that you have down. And a lot of times when you write them in some form or fashion, that helps relieve your mind of it, right? Because now you got it down on paper and now you're able to see it. Right? Being able to see it on paper is actually what helps you be able to see it come to fruition off the paper and be able to put it in the work. I remember coming to you to get my financial advisor and get started. It's like, okay, hey, look, I'm going to show you these numbers right here. And if you do this for this amount of time, this is where you can be by this time, right? And so now I have those etched in my head that I know that, okay, if I add an incremental percentage to that, then I could grow that, right? And so that's what we want the people to do going into the new year, that whether you like writing resolutions or whatever it is, we believe that every day is the first day of a new year. Right? You know what I'm saying? So even years to me, it's always an opportunity to grow. Every day that you wake up and you're alive is the opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to celebrate what you did and make correction on the mistakes that you made. So, but first you have to write it down. If you don't write it down, I may say that you may not be able to get it done. All right? You can get it done, but it starts with putting it down on paper and getting yourself organized with where you're going to go.
What's crazy is when you write something down on paper, the first line leads to a second line, which leads to a third line, which leads to a fourth line. They got all them lines on a piece of paper for a reason. And whatever it is, when you start writing, it leads you down a path where it's almost like God being able to take out of you what he put in you. So I think that's why the Bible says write it down and make it plain. Right. So you can get, because he got to pull it out of you. It's one thing, and I would say, anytime I ride in the car, I'm always, listening, to nothing, because that's my quiet time, so to speak. And I do my best thinking when I'm traveling, and it's just me and the Lord having a conversation on the road, or it may be in the shower where you just got, it's just you and him, and you're able to have just a clear thought and a clear mind, and he reveals those things to me. But I've learned that if I don't get home and I don't sit down in my office or in my bedroom and sit down at the desk and I don't write down what he gave me, I lose it. So, and because in writing it down, it allows me to start putting those action items around, okay, well, God, you gave me this vision and this message. Now, writing it down allows me to understand, okay, what steps need to happen around this to help me start to execute the vision that you gave me. Because he gives all of us a vision. If you got to find your gift. First off, you got to find your gift. Ask the Lord what your gift is. And I can tell you firsthand, it may not be what you want your gift to be. We don't get to choose our gift. They said many are called, few are chosen. So, he gave you the gift that he wants you to have. But the great thing about it is that everybody has a gift and your gift will make room for you. So it's no surprise when you said you've had 20 years of success, being a barber and having a barbershop. That's allows you to have, 15 years of success in the ministry. And that's opening doors into other things, and, I'm a firm believer in, your gift will make room for you. A man is skillful in his words, going to be placed full of great men. And, we got to continue to seek that attention to detail, seeking that professional help, because, for my business owners out there and just for people in general, when you start to become a master of whatever your craft is, people take notice of that. And people want to be associated with people who are the best at whatever it is they do. Like I say, nobody wants to be hang out with the losing team. Everybody want to be with the winner.
Winners, yeah.
And how do you become a winner? It's because practice, it's preparation, it's hard work, it's dedication, it's commitment, and doing those things right over and over and over again. And people start to see that. So I tell my sons all the time, I say, look here, you want to get more opportunities on the football field, on the basketball court. Well, your opportunities are dictated by your work. The harder you work and the better you prepare, the coach takes note of that. And all of a sudden, you go from getting 1 shot a game to 2 shot a game to 5 shots to 10 shots a game. But you got to make sure you have prepared yourself for that moment. I have to ask the listening audience, have you prepared yourself for the success? So that's the elephant in the room that don't nobody want to address. Everybody wants to have the success, but nobody wants to deal with what comes with the success, the expectations that come with it, the work that comes with it, the stress that comes with it, the commitment that comes with it. So there's a lot of things that come with it. And I was talking to a friend of mine one time. He said, man, you know what? I got something from what you said. And I said, what's that? He said, I've learned that most people want to be average. Not many people want to be great, because, greatness requires certain things. It causes certain things as well. It causes a little bit of resentment. It causes a little bit of jealousy. It causes a little bit of envy, but that's okay. Because if you focus on greatness, God is seeing you operate in your gift that he gave you, because he gave you the greatness that's going to come from it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a blessing to somebody else, and other people are going to see it. And that's where our gift allows us and creates room for us in avenues and areas that we could have never expected. Like they always say, your name going to make it to the room before you ever do.
Yeah.
And you want your name to reach that room in a positive fashion. You want people to say, hey, man, you know what, that person, they're well prepared. They're well groomed. They're thoughtful. They're articulate. They're prepared. They're hardworking. You want your name to ring bells in rooms in a positive way, but that comes by the work that you do. I tell my sons all the time, I said, look, your character is who you are when ain't nobody looking. Who are you? If you saw you when you wasn't at practice, would you give yourself a scholarship? Are you doing the work? Do you have, and I have to look at myself that way. I said, look,
do you trust yourself?
Exactly. You've got, and we come back to that word trust. So, and I think, like you said before one time, is that one of our biggest issues and why we don't trust is we don't trust ourselves. We know what we're doing at home, and when we, when nobody else can see us, we know how much work or lack thereof we're putting in. We know the lack of commitment we have, because everybody's going to always show you and tell you what they think you want to see.
Yeah.
Not many people are going to tell you the truth about what's actually going on. Like I say, don't speak about it, be about it. We got to live it. We got to walk this thing out. And, one of my clients, he always says, man, be the change you want to see. So I tend to live that, by example, and trying to set that example for my sons and my family, and hopefully they can, come behind me and start to do some of those same things. And, I've learned that the truth all that ain't always comfortable. It ain't always pretty. It ain't always cute, but it's the truth. And I feel like we need more truth. We need more truth from our men in our community, in my opinion. I think, too many times we like to tell people what's comfortable. We become okay with too much. There's a lot of things that, because we don't want to have confrontation, we tend to shy away from and say it's okay. And once you start to okay something, that opens the door for the devil to let something else be okay. Once you give the green light and say, you know what, it ain't that bad. Well, now something else ain't that bad. You become desensitized to things. It's like when you see certain things happening in the community and you see people rob and see people steal and kill, and when these things become normalized, you become desensitized to it. He's like, oh, that's just the way it's supposed to be. No. That ain't the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
Kids are not supposed to be disrespecting their parents. They're not supposed to be disrespecting adults. They're not supposed to be acting out in certain ways. They're supposed to be, being checked and being kept in line. In the Bible I read, it says, "Spare rod, spoil the child." Hey, save his soul from Sheol. That's the one that that I read. Now, everybody, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the Bible they try to switch it up and change it to their own accord and make it comfortable to fit their own narrative, but the truth is the truth. And I think we have to do a better job of living in the truth consistently, not just when it's convenient to us in a particular moment in time.
And that's good, because when we talk about celebrating your success, anybody that evaluates themselves and where they ended up being successful, it was the moment that they were willing to humble themselves and receive correction.
Absolutely.
Right? It was that moment when that rod came down on you and it didn't spoil you, but it saved you from the failures, right? That's what we can use that in essence too, that definitely literally we're saying, okay, that rod will save you from hell, from Sheol in the scripture, but also it saves you from going through hell a lot of times in whatever aspect of business or life that you're in, if you are willing to receive correction, right? You're able to receive guidance. That's why you talked about, when you talk about people being masters of what they do, and we able to listen to the people that are masters in their field. When we do that, we're humbling ourselves. We are receiving the correction that we need to receive the guidance that we need to get us to where we need to be. And this happens in all phases of our lives, and we need to be willing, right? Men need to be willing to tell the truth. Women need to be willing to tell the truth. We have to be honest with one another. You know, that's why this podcast is not called A Lie About Black Wealth, right? It's closing the gap, the truth about black wealth. And so when we start telling you the truth, we're trying to help you realize that the truth of the matter is, we don't have the type of wealth that we need because we don't celebrate our successes like we need to, because we don't listen to the people that have the instruction that we need, and then we're not willing to be accountable to ourselves, number one, right? We like to talk a good game.
Absolutely.
We like to tell everybody what we know. We receive a little knowledge, and now we want to talk about it in the open. But you need to live it and let your life be the sermon that is preached, right? Don't tell me about the book that you read and all of the knowledge that you received from that book, or webinar that you went to, or whatever type of instruction that you received. Don't tell me about how good it is when it's actually something that you need to be utilizing in your life to be successful.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want to see, right? When Wilbert, I see his life and what he does, you know, and so I'm able to trust him with my finances in that way, right? Because of the type of person he is, the demeanor that he has, the attitude that he has, the spirit that he conveys over to me, right? It lets me know that, okay, he's skillful in what he does. And that's what we need in our community more and more and more. We need less people that are going out and trying to sell us a dream and tell us something, but actually show me that you've put this down on paper. Show me the success that you had in the area of business that you're in, or ministry, whatever it is, whatever blessing that God has led you to lead. Show me the success in that, and I'm going to celebrate it with you, right? Because I like building community. You know what I'm saying? I like seeing everybody win. I like knowing that somebody is doing great, because when I see them doing great, that gives me inspiration. And so we want you to be inspired going into 2025 and the rest of your life, and every single day that you wake up. Be inspired to get up and take the time to listen to what God has to say to you. Be inspired to write down the plan that God downloads into your mind. Be inspired to put your hands to do the work. Put your feet to walk the walk that you need to walk out, and going about and achieving everything that you need to achieve in this new year.
And you know what? One of those things I always say, the greatest compliment you can give anybody is that I see God in you. And I ask you this question: can I see God in you? See you next time.